See you. Hello, come on in. Who do we have in the room? All right, Charles in Illinois. Come on, Pittsburgh. Casey, all right. Hello, New Hampshire. Hi, Wisconsin. Glen Ellen right down the street. Hello, Jasmine. Hello, Nicole. Fresno in the house. Hello. Come on, South Howland. I see you.
Yeah.
Hello, all. We're super excited that you are here. Do me a favor and we are streaming this on YouTube. If you think it's important enough for you to be here, it's important for someone else to be here. Go to YouTube and share this link, okay, so that people can learn about this very, very important topic that we are having today. So, Lori, let's keep going. Please, next slide. As you guys know, we are we have this fantastic platform that we're using, and we have ways for you to engage. So unlike our normal time, guys, is normal setup. This time we're going to hold all questions until the end of today's presentation. Okay, then we'll have a Q&A because our presenter has a lot of great info to get and she doesn't want to lose it and she just wants to flow. So put all of your Q&A in the Q&A box. Okay, there's a place for that. Feel free to type your comments in the group chat like always. We love those. Just make sure it's going to everyone and not just to us. Okay. Thank you. And then please be patient with us. We have like over 200 people joining us today. And the comments and the questions are going to get good. We're going to try and answer as many questions as we can. Okay. Thank you. Next slide, Lori. Now, we try to create a really safe space. We want to create a space where people can feel brave to share, and we do it through our agreements. And those agreements are speaking from your own experience using I statements. So as you share, even in the chat, let's not talk about other people. Share your own experiences. We are finding out that there are so many people who have incarcerated loved ones, that it is not a new thing, it is a major thing that's impacting a lot of families. So share from your own experience because your experience has value and can really help someone else. Treat other people the way you want to be treated. That's our golden rule. That comes down to not judging, not giving advice, just being present in the moment and using your I statement where you can. Then please no multitasking. We say this, but really, guys, it's lunchtime. Grab you something to eat. Be present in the moment, but not doing your work stuff. Because if you're doing your work stuff, answering emails, playing words with friends and all that stuff, you're gonna miss some really good info. And then you're gonna be asking us to send you stuff, and we're not. No, I'm kidding. Be present, okay? If you need me to take a minute, this is a really heavy subject, or can be. It's going to touch a lot of households. If you need a minute, take a minute. We'll be right here. Now, some of you guys know what to do. For those of you guys who do not know what to do, drop I agree in the chat to let us know that you are good with keeping these agreements to keep this space safe and to encourage other people to share. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. Yay! All right, well, let's get to it. Next slide. Today, I have been chasing this lady down for about 2 years. She and I have been playing tag on LinkedIn. I came across her podcast, and I almost think, Sheila, I want to say maybe you were just starting out good. And I watched some of the videos and I said, oh my gosh, I have to have her on the webinar. She has to be a part of the Be Strong Families family. So I'm so pleased that she's here today. Let me tell you a little bit about her, and then I'm going to turn it over to her, and she's going to get us started. Shelia Bruno is the founder of Wife After Prison and a leading advocate for understanding the emotional and psychological impact of incarceration. Known as the Awakener, Sheila gives language to the pain that families and returning citizens often cannot explain. Drawing from her own lived experience and years of research, she has become a national voice on post incarceration syndrome, PICS, a trauma response that affects individuals long after their release. Through her books, workshops, and speaking engagements, Sheila empowers families, professionals, and citizens returning to recognize the signs, heal from their effects, and rebuild their lives with compassion, structure, and purpose. It gives me great pleasure and an honor to introduce and share with you guys Shelia Bruno. Welcome, Sheila.
All right, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here, guys. I am super excited for this opportunity. I don't take it lightly. When I'm speaking, when I'm presenting, I have this hat on where, again, everybody experiences matters to me, families matters to me. And so without further ado, I'm going to get started because I do have a lot of information. This conversation is going to be like a buffet. I'm going to give you a little this, I'm going to give you a little that, and a little this. So make sure you guys have your pen and paper handy, or if you need to, you can screenshot, because again, I am going to be sharing a lot of information. Okay, so let's get here and share my screen. All righty. Wait a minute. Okay. All right. Are you guys seeing my screen? Very good. Okay, good. And I just want to say thank you guys for showing up today. Thank you for leaning into this very hard conversation. It could be sensitive in nature, but it's a necessary conversation. So thank you for leaning in and showing up. This is not just professional for me. As Sarita said, this is personal also. It was last year during Second Chance Month, an organization reached out with an opportunity to speak during their Second Chance event. And as she and I was having a conversation, she said, "Oh, I thought you had been to prison, wife after prison, right?" And so I shared with her that I had not been to prison. And she said, "Oh, we were looking for someone with lived experience." And of course, she couldn't see me standing there in my restroom, but my hand went up. Okay, so lived experience means you're carrying the wisdom, you're carrying the pain, you're carrying the perspective from the family point of view. You're not someone who is just watching from the sideline. You're in the trenches with this. So a lot of times people dismiss and discount the families. So I just want to let you know that you guys, if you are supporting someone, and even to the parole corrections, you have lived experience. You don't have to be physically behind the bars. A lot of us are doing time on the outside. Okay, so don't let nobody minimize your experience there. And so before I get this, if you could put in the chat, how many of you have seen someone come home from prison and slowly fall apart? Right? So how many of you have been confused? You've been heartbroken, even scared by what you saw? Chat it up, right? So that confusion, that heartbreak, and that fear is what we're going to be talking about today. Because there's one thing for certain, two things for sure: that prison has a release date, but trauma does not. I have to make a disclaimer, okay? I have to make it clear that prison is not a one size fits all experience. Every person journey is unique. So what I share today, it comes from patterns, it comes from stories, it comes from lived experience, but no two journeys are exactly the same. So please keep that in mind as we explore the weight of incarceration. So my mission is clear. I'm called to raise awareness and name the pain that incarceration leaves behind. And when the truth is spoken out loud, individuals can stop blaming themselves and start doing the inner work and rebuild their lives with clarity and hope. And guys, look, the key word here is out loud. We have to name it out loud. We have to name post-incarceration syndrome out loud, just like we name PTSD out loud, because there's too many individuals, including the family members, walking around suffering in silence because it's scared that we're scared to say post-incarceration syndrome. Post-incarceration syndrome. So the key word is when you name it out loud, people can begin to resonate, people can begin to heal. Mr. Terry Gorski, I always have to acknowledge Mr. Gorski because he coined the term post-incarceration syndrome because he saw the struggles long ago. They were felt, but they were really talked about. So I have to always acknowledge him. And then here recently, Mr. Gorski passed in 2020. And here recently, the president, Mr. Roland Williams, he read my book, The Second Sentence, and he acknowledged that it is in alignment with the work that Mr. Gorski had started. So I'm standing on the shoulders of Mr. Gorski, just expanding the reach with lived experience in the family perspectives. So it started here, guys. This is me. Happily married to my high school sweetheart, Kevin Bruno. Kevin and I reunited in 2014. We dated in the ninth grade, 1976, M.B. Smiley High School. Kevin used to walk me to class, hold my book, sit with me at the lunchroom, buy me some snacks at the snack bar. That kind of dude. And so he and I reconnected in 2014. I hadn't seen him in 38 years. And immediately he shared with me that he had been to prison, nearly 30 years incarcerated. And I was shocked because I never would have put Kevin Bruno in prison in the same sentence. 2024, we reconnected. 2014, we reconnected. 2014, we got married. I was one of the happiest women alive. Kevin, real low-key brother, didn't require much. None of those, you been home all day and you ain't cooked? Kevin and I used to pray together and read the Bible together. He would pray over me. And that's what I desired. We used to run around the house playing together like kids. He had a trucking company. I became his dispatcher. We had an amazing life. We thought we had beat the odds because, statistics says that within 3 to 5 years that an individual is more likely to recidivate. So we thought we had beat the odds because it was 4 years we had reconnected. He had been home for 4 years. But what we didn't know is that the institutional trauma had followed him home. He was free in body, but in mind, he was still in prison. And we didn't have a language for it until I came across post-incarceration syndrome. And it was silently unraveling our lives. Within 2 years, he became unrecognizable, both in character and behavior. Mood swings, isolation, sorely depressed, easily irritated by the least things. I didn't know how to talk to him. I went to him one day. I said, "Hey, you changing on me." I said, "Have I changed?" And he said, "No." But that's all he said. Kevin's behavior began to affect me in a manner that I was losing myself. I began to take sleeping pills. Wine replaced my water because that was the only time I wasn't in pain because I didn't understand what was happening to my amazing husband. Why wasn't he no longer treating me like a soulmate? He was treating me like a cellmate, one that he despised. And I don't understand that. So this photo says it all. Mentally, I was confused. As many of you may be confused if you Seeing a loved one come home from prison and slowly fall apart. Because I was wondering what has happened to my amazing husband. Kevin and I separated numerous times. We was trying to figure it out. Maybe we got married too soon. He said, Sheila, maybe because I didn't court you. I want to court you. So we separated numerous times. And I remember one of the dates that we went on, we were separated. I called him. I said, hey, let's hang out. Let's go to dinner. Let's go to the movies. Let's just hang out. And he agreed. Came by and he picked me up. That was one of the worst dates I had ever been with him on. I was so happy. I got all dolled up, put on my good stuff, and smell good. And I remember we went to dinner first. I was sitting there and I was just talking. I was pouring. I was happy. He was just still. He wasn't saying anything. No emotions. Yes or no. That's all he would say. Yeah. No. Yeah. And we left dinner and we went to movies. Surely we're going to cuddle up in the movie. Nothing. He just sit there. Didn't interact with me. And I remember on the ride home, I said, this is it. I got to get off of this roller coaster ride. So I decided that I was going to file for divorce that Monday morning. And I came into the house and I went to the bedroom. And I went to my go-to, my sleeping pills and a bottle of wine. And I poured 3 of them in my hand. And then I poured another one. And I popped them in my mouth and I grabbed my wine and I chased it. And I cried myself to sleep. I remember laying at the foot of the bed in a fetus position. I had my knees tucked closely to my chest. And I was crying. And the last thing I remember saying is, God, what has happened to Kevin? And I dozed off to sleep. And when I woke up, as clear as I can hear my own voice, as clear as you can hear me, I heard the voice of God say, Google, can a boy become a man in prison? And I hopped up and I went to the head of the bed and I knocked all the papers and the books that now occupied the space that Kevin used to sleep. Because I was constantly studying, trying to find out what had happened to my amazing husband. And so I grabbed my laptop and I Googled those exact words. Can a boy become a man in prison? And up popped a list of websites. The very first website was The Psychological Impact of Incarceration by psychologist Craig Haney. The second one was Post-Incarceration Syndrome and Relapse by the late Terry Korsky. And what I read is what I was witnessing. And so I copied and pasted those links and I put them in the email to Kevin. And in the subject line, I said, hear my heart. Because things got so bad between us, everything appeared to be an attack. So I say, hear my heart. And I asked him to read the links. And a couple of days later, he called me back. And he confirmed, this is it. This is what I'm going through. So Kevin and I cried. But I still needed support for me. So I went to Google and I Googled support for families whose loved ones who are incarcerated. It had taken me to a place that I had worked so hard to come out of. I had been working on me, personal development, coaching, spending thousands of dollars on me. And this experience was taking me back to that girl. And so I Googled support for family members whose loved one have been incarcerated. Nothing. Nothing. I even changed the words. I said, okay, incarcerated support for families. Playing around with the words. Nothing. So I said, okay. I wasn't a Facebooker back then. But I said, I know on Facebook, there's a lot of different groups. So I went to Facebook. And in the search bar, prison wives. That's all I put. And up popped thousands of groups. There has to be a prison-wide group for every prison there is. And so I went in each of the group because I wanted to check the temperature. I wanted to see what they talking about. Was they supporting or what they talking about? And so I went in 26 groups. And I calculated the number of members in each group, over 26,000 people. But they wasn't talking about pigs. They was talking about countdown. They was talking about the COs. They was talking about what they gonna wear to visitation. That ain't what I needed. So I decided, okay, I went in 26 groups and I typed this one question. Have you heard of post-incarceration syndrome? That's all I typed. And I was really nervous, but I needed to understand. I needed to find out if Kevin and I were the only ones. Was this an isolated incident? And so I was a little nervous. And so I didn't go back and check the answers for a couple of days. And when I did, I didn't have a one yes. There were lots of comments, lots of no's. I didn't have a one yes. So I went back to Kevin. And I said, we got to talk about this. I said, nobody knows what post-incarceration syndrome is. And being the amazing guy that he is. He said, absolutely. And so Kevin and I did a video. And I post that video in several of those groups. And the cries start coming. Oh my God. Had I known this, maybe my husband and I would still be married. I had to walk away to save myself. Oh my God. Had I known this, maybe my husband would be back inside. Had I known this, maybe my husband would still be alive. Because 3 days after he got out, he committed suicide. And so people in the group were asking her, what happened? What happened in 3 days? What happened in 72 hours? But I had read enough. I had witnessed enough. I had lived through enough to know it wasn't in the 72 hours. It's what happened inside that he couldn't live with. So I'm going to share 3 truths with you today. And if you lean in, you'll never see reentry the same. You'll never see your loved ones the same. And even your clients. So truth number 1, post-incarceration syndrome is real, even if it's not in the DSM yet. Truth number 1 is where it all begins and why so many may be motivated, even supported afterwards, but they still struggle. So post-incarceration syndrome is a cluster of emotional, psychological, and behavior symptoms that follows individuals home. Post-incarceration syndrome, or PICS, is the mental and the behavior impact on long-term imprisonment. It's born from trauma, it's born from stress, and it's born from years of living in survival mode. They're not Cadillacing in there. They're in survival mode 24/7, 365, for 5 years, for 10 years, for decades, in survival mode. And I remember the first time that I taught post-incarceration syndrome in a pre-release unit. These guys was all in. No sidebar talking. I mean, they was all in. They leaned in. And as I was teaching, the director was walking past the door. And one of the guys said, "Hey, why are we just getting this?" He said, "We should have got this when we first got here." And he was exactly right, because that wasn't just another class. That was the missing piece. There are 5 core components to post-incarceration syndrome. 5 core components. In each of these components, there are behaviors. And that was so important for me when I started studying this. I needed to know, what does that look like? You can tell me institutionalization all day long, but what does that look like? Because I knew if I was going to share this with the world, it had to be in digestible, bite-sized pieces in language where they could understand. So one of the core components is institutionalization, adapting so deeply to prison routines and rules that the free world feels foreign. Someone waits for permission to go to the bathroom or struggles with making decisions. Recently, a mother reached out to me. She said, "My son asked for permission to get water out of our kitchen." This is why it's so important for people, for families to understand the behaviors, for you to understand post-incarceration syndrome. So when you see this, you can recognize. A wife reached out to me on TikTok. She said, "I'm so glad you came across my page. Your video came across my page." She said, "My husband is home now." She said, "And I've been beating him up about making simple decisions." When nearly the majority of decisions have been made for you for years and for decades. What time's count time? What time you got to go to chow? You can't go to rec. You got to do all of these. All of these decisions have been made for you. That affects the portion of your brain where decision making is housed. So when you come out, being able to make decisions is a struggle for you. One gentleman told me, he said, "Ma'am, look at," he said, "I had a meltdown in the store, in the grocery store." He said, "I just wanted some coffee." He said, "I found the coffee aisle, but when I found the coffee aisle," he said, "Ma'am, it was hundreds of decisions I had to make, choices, brands and flavors and colors." He said, "I had a meltdown in the aisle at the coffee store." Institutionalization. So when you've lived in that system that tells you what, when to get up, when to eat, when to move and sleep, that is what happened when freedom suddenly tells you to think for yourself again. So it's a sensory deprivation, being cut off from sights and sounds and interactions, making the free world feel overwhelming. Right? Crowded stores, like the gentleman with the coffee, or loud events, they trigger the emotions. A wife shared with me recently. Husband came home. She thought she was doing the right thing. Threw him a little dinner party. He went in the room. And after everybody left, he said, "Man, I ain't ready for all of that." He said, "I was overwhelmed with all of these people." It was sensory overload. And she said to me, it was just family and friends, ma'am, you don't understand. It was sensory overload. Because this is the deal, guys. In prison, you're constantly watching people. You're watching their moods. You're watching their hands. So you throw somebody in a party with a whole lot of people. You can't watch everybody. This is sensory overload. So we have to be mindful of that when, they come home and we want to throw them this big party. Welcome home. Right? PTSD-like symptoms, hypervigilance, nightmares, flashback, or emotional numbing caused by exposure of violence or constant threat inside. I remember when we first started talking about post-incarceration syndrome. The lady said, oh, that's just PTSD. And I politely said, ma'am, you can't edit my story for me. I know that PICS is different from PTSD. Yes, they share common symptoms, but the root of it all is different, right? PTSD, one single traumatic event, car crash, an assault, a clear before and after. Before the car crash, I felt safe driving. After the car crash, every time I see a headlight come towards me, it makes me nervous. PTSD, right? But PICS is different. It's not one traumatic event. It's thousands and hundreds and thousands of micro traumas occurring every day for years and for decades, right? Trauma on top of trauma, layers. Trauma on top of trauma. It's not just one experience. Antisocial personality traits, distrust, emotional attachment, or lack of empathy, often a defense mechanism, not inherent cruelty. Keeping relationships surface level because deep connections feel unsafe, right? In prison, you just at no result. You're just not hanging out. You're gonna keep people at surface level. These traits are often survival behaviors inside. Things like not trusting anybody, always being on guard, showing up, showing no emotions. Because in showing emotions inside can get you hurt. Being vulnerable inside can get you hurt. Gentleman reached out. He said, ma'am, I don't feel nothing. He said, my girl thinks it's her, but I know it's me. Because inside I had to shed all of that down. And so just because when they come out that back gate, the emotions not waiting on at the back gate, waiting on them to upload again. Another brother shared when he said, let me tell you something, sis. He said, I went in there shedding all that emotional stuff down. He said, because I knew with the type of time I had that my parents would die while I was inside. And when I got the news, I didn't want to feel nothing. Substance use, numbing, using drugs or alcohol to cope with anxiety, depression, or emotional pain. A lot of family members don't understand when their loved ones get out and they start drinking, doing dope. They're numbing something. They're numbing the pain. Mr. John Newton, he told his wife to follow me on LinkedIn so that she can understand his struggles. And by the time she connected with me, Mr. Newton had died from an overdose. He told his wife that he was in solitary confinement for 19 months. And mentally, he came unraveled. And so when he got out, to quiet the noise in his head, he turned to drugs. He was found, had been dead for 6 days in his boarding room house. in his room at the boarding house. Substance use. So the 5 core components of post-incarceration syndrome: institutionalization, social sensory deprivation, antisocial personality trait, PTSD, life symptoms, and substance use phenomenon. The second truth: I don't think people really understand how the magnitude of the trauma that justice impacted citizens carry. Where a lot of reentry programs fail is they don't invite trauma, the conversation of trauma, to their programs. So the 3D plus the V experience, there's layers of trauma. The first D is the disruption, the pre-incarceration trauma. The pain started long before prison. Childhood trauma, abandonment, molested at 7, mom OD'd at 10, shot at 15, in and out of the prisons, the foster care system. So survival mode had already started, pre-incarceration. And then you go to the next layer, that's the disconnection, the incarceration trauma. Prison teaches you to shut it all down. So you lose you lose touch with yourself. All of the violence that you see, the fights, the stabbings, the strip searches. You learn to feel because you don't learn, you stop learning to feel because being vulnerable once again can get you hurt. So you have all of this disruption, the pre-incarceration trauma, then you have the disconnection, you have the incarceration trauma, and then you have the distress. That's the post-incarceration trauma. You come home, freedom feels overwhelming, freedom is chaotic, right? So you have all of these expectations. You have reentry relationships. You have a parole checklist. So whereas freedom supposed to feel free, freedom feels chaotic. And then the V, that's the view. That's the vicarious trauma. That's us. That's the families. That's the families. We see it. We carry it too. Just recently, I was reading in a Facebook group, and the mother said, my son called me. He's 23 years old. She said he's very slim, small frame. And he called his mom and he said, Mom, they want to fight me. I don't want to fight. So she went in and she was asking, what advice can I give my son? And most of the comments were from individuals who had had that journey, citizens who have come home. And they told that mom to tell him he better fight. Win or lose, he better fight. Because if he doesn't fight, then he's going to be a target. And that's the vicarious trauma. We carry it too. After a workshop that I did at the parole office, afterwards, the parole supervisor said, can I talk to you across the hall? And I'm thinking, okay, Sheila, what you did? You tend to say stuff. And within seconds of getting into that room, she burst into tears. She said, you just told my story. She said, I never heard of post-incarceration syndrome before. My husband was in prison for 19 years. And I'm thinking about filing for divorce. She said, ma'am, you just told my story. She said, it all makes sense now. So this is why it's so important that we incorporate trauma into our programs, into our conversations. not only for citizens who are coming home, but we as family members. Because we too, the vicarious trauma, the secondhand trauma, it becomes a part of our life. And I want you guys to listen to this. This is post-incarceration syndrome. This is it.
I had to literally call my parole officer today. You know, I had to swallow my pride and let them know that I need counseling. Is it any type of, counseling guidance that they give people that have been, recently released out of prison? And the denial, thinking that I didn't need any counseling, I didn't need anybody to talk to, stem from me feeling like I was okay simply because anybody that know me during the course of my prison bed, I stood strong. I ain't go through some of the stuff a lot of dudes went through, and I thought I wasn't traumatized, but just because something doesn't happen to you directly, just seeing it can traumatize you. And I'm just finding that out. I know there's a lot of people that already knew that, but I just found that out for myself. Just being encapsulated around certain things, seeing how people do other people. And, it affected me psychologically to the point where I had to wake up every day and the only emotion I could show was aggression. Because in prison, any situation, any altercation you get into, it's not just that, it's people always on the sideline thinking, well, if you don't handle that how they think a macho man to handle it, you a punk. And that gonna lead to what no real man finna go through. So having to be in an environment that the only emotion I can express was aggression, and wearing that for all those years, clear cut hyper-aggression affected me to the point where I lash out quick in a conversation if I feel the conversation is not going my way, and it's starting to affect the only meaningful relationships that I have in my life. And I ain't think prison to do me like that. But it's hard for me to turn the aggression off. So I had to sit down on my lunch break and understand that I might lose my wife. I'm a man, I always took pride in knowing I never put my hands on a woman, but I'm just not learning. Talking to a woman aggressively and raising your voice is a form of abuse. And I've been mentally abusing my wife. So, and it's kind of at the point where I feel like I'm losing her, but regardless of if I lose or not, I know I'm in the wrong, I still got to get help. If I put myself in a position or a situation where I make somebody get violent with me and that, they ain't even had to go that way. Me being hyper aggressive from the psychological effects of prison is dulling my conflict resolution skills because I do know how to avoid trouble when I'm being mindful. But like I said, I swallowed my pride and I told my parole officer what was going on. And that took a lot for me because honestly, I ain't want to never feel as a man that I was lost. But then I had to come to the realization that, hey, Debo, you just got out of prison. That alone shows at some point in time you was misguided and lost. And I'm still going through my rehabilitation. So any guy that have been to prison and getting out, your rehabilitation still continue while you out. If you need help, seek help. If you need help, seek help. I'm gonna go get me some counseling. I had to literally.
So that's O'Brien. And he's now in counseling. He and his wife are separated. But one of the things that stood out in that video when I first saw it, he said, I didn't think prison would do me like this. And as I share often with individuals who are in denial, that they were in prison, and no disrespect to any of them. And I tell them that you've been in a cage. How is it that you can survive prison, decades in prison in a cage and not be affected? Denial is dangerous. Truth number 3. So this is a framework that I created after I had presented for an organization that streamed inside of the DOC in Las Vegas. This was some years ago. And during the Q&A session, a gentleman came up to the mic and he looked tired. He looked worn. He looked drained. He looked so depressed. And he said, "What's the solution?" And I didn't have an answer for him. I didn't have an answer for him. The only thing that I could say was therapy. But he said, I've tried therapy. And I remember getting off of that Zoom. And I said, wow, you put all of these issues and these problems in front of this man, and you didn't have a solution. So I vowed that day that no one would ever ask me, what's the solution? And I not provide an answer. So I went back to study some of the work from psychologist Craig Haney. And one of the things that he said, Dr. Haney said, prisons are psychologically powerful places capable of transforming and training the thoughts and the behaviors of those who enter them, often in a negative way. I played with that thing. Prisons, psychologically powerful places capable of transforming the thoughts of those who enter them, often in a negative way. I had my answer. The H3 framework. When the head and the heart aren't healed, the hands can't hold stability. So we have to incorporate this framework. The head, the first H, mental health. Out the gate or in the gate. On this side of the bars or on that side of the bars. Because incarceration rewires the brain for survival. And without retraining the mind, survival mode after release, survival mode is all they know. So we must teach them to feel safe again. We must teach them to feel present again. Because you can't heal what you keep normalizing. The second H is the heart. Because this is where emotional regulation lives. We have to help them to identify how to feel again, how to name it. It's okay to be sad, right? Again, the man that told me I don't feel nothing. Why? Because he had suppressed his emotions down for years. Because he had to. But we have to let him know it's safe, it's cold to feel again. It's okay to feel again, right? The third H is the hands. This is the thing with me and some reentry programs. We want to start with the hands. We want to start with get them a job, they'll be all right. You've been incarcerated for 20 years. You've been incarcerated for 30 years. You've been in prison for 40 years. Get them a job, everything will go away. Not likely. Not likely, right? So because healing isn't complete until it shows up in what we do. Mr. Brooks was in prison for 40 years. One of my very first mentees out of the caravans unit. 2 life sentences, never expected to get out of prison. Never expected to get out of prison. 2 weeks they had him on a job. The first week he told the supervisor, he said, if he say anything talking about another coworker, if he say anything to me, y'all gonna life flight him out of here. That's what happens when you put the hands before the head. So the order matters. The head, the heart, the hand. The order matters. When we start with the hands instead of the head and the heart, people lose their jobs, relationships crumble, cycles repeat, and hope fades. You can't rebuild freedom when a person has a survival mindset. So these are real voices from people from my TikTok page, my TikTok community. It's the person said, it's like you're speaking my reality. I was released 2 months ago after serving 23 years. It's a struggle adjusting. Another said, I know I have pics from both being incarcerated and working there. So these are real voices of pics. Healing and hope. This person said, I go to PICS support groups now. My life has changed because I identified the issues. Another said, I was 19 when I went in and 25 when I came out. I wasn't the same person. This is what happens, what awareness can do. This is from a wife. She says, your video made my husband break down crying. You described everything he's been trying to tell me for years. He struggles with hypervigilance, always on guard, afraid of being triggered. Thank you for bringing awareness to PICS. Back in April, I had the opportunity to teach from my book, The Second Sentence at High Desert State Prison. And this is afterwards, I received 22 evaluations from the class and book reviews. And this is what they had to say. This book put words to what I've been feeling for years and couldn't explain. Another gentleman said, it's like you were in my head. I thought I was just tripping. And someone else said, no one ever told me what prison was doing to my mind until now. Then another one said, this should be mandatory reading before you hit the gate. I finally understand why I struggle with trust, even with my own family. And lastly, it's like you pulled the cover off something they don't want to talk about. Marlon is one of my favorite mentees. Marlon went to prison at 15 years old. He was released at 39. I'm sorry, he went to prison at 15. He was released at 54. One day after class, I said, Marlon, tell Ms. Bruno about your mental health evaluation. He said, I didn't have one. I said, Marlon, you did 39, you pre-release, few more months, you out the door. I said, you've been from unit to unit. Tell Ms. Bruno about your mental health evaluation. He said, Ms. Bruno, I ain't had that. He got a little irritated. He said, Ms. Bruno, I told you I ain't had now one of them. And he said, Ms. Bruno, when I hear the word mental health, I think it means some crazy. And so I began to explain to him, I said, Marlon, it doesn't mean you crazy. It's how you think, how you feel, how you handle life. I said, just like our physical bodies get tired, so does our mental. I said, it doesn't mean you're crazy. Firstly, it means you're human. How many Marlins, y'all? How many Marlins are still inside or have come home and they will not seek mental health treatment, number one, because we're not having the conversation with them. So how many Marlins? Because if we don't challenge that belief, we'll keep having these same conversations. The second sentence. These are just some resources that I have, guys, and I just wanted to share. So the second sentence is the one nobody talks about, and it's post-incarceration syndrome. This letter here, I received this letter from a gentleman, and I don't know if you could physically see it, but he was saying here, he said, putting labels to the experiences that he had been having in his head had helped him allow. So this is the thing, guys. Language matters. Language matters. And again, for me, I had to make sure that when I talk to these individuals who have come home, I have to be on their level. I couldn't go in there talking with these clinical terms, no disrespect into the mental health professionals, but clinical terms and clinical jargon, it was going to go over their heads. Right? But the reason why so many of them connect with me because of the language. They can relate to the language. And this is what this gentleman was saying in this letter to me. It is regularly $14.97. Today, you can get it for only $9.97. Instant download. I also have a free download for you, PICS fact sheet. Please download this information, get this information, share this information, teach this information, train it. Train it, take it back to your communities, take it back to your team, take it back to your family members. Also, I put a bundle together. When you purchase Second Sentence, you'll get Wife After Prison Caught in the Aftermath, my very first book that I wrote, just exposing post-incarceration syndrome. The other one is How to Talk to Your Loved Ones About PICS, because what I'm finding is, again, family members don't have the language. They don't know how to talk about this. So even in that ebook, I have a template to help you to explain post-incarceration syndrome and talk to your families in a manner where they can receive, right? And then the other one is Doing Time on the Outside. Family members, we doing time on the outside. A lot of times people, they don't think about the family members, but we're doing time on the outside. And so this is an activity book to help you navigate post-incarceration syndrome and in your families. Newly released. What about the children, y'all? The children see it, right? The children, when I had a conversation with an 8-year-old, I was asking him, was he happy that his dad was home? His reply was, he here, but he really ain't here. So I was like, oh my God. So I put something together for the caregivers so that they can educate the kids on post-incarceration syndrome in a soft manner so that the kids can understand. So when their loved ones come home, they don't take it personally, right? They don't take the mood swings personally. And lastly, before I close, I want to connect with you guys. So I want to connect with you to be able to send you resources and just keep you up to date. But the thing about this is, guys, today I shared the problem. I shared the issue of post-incarceration syndrome, but I also shared the solution, which is the H3 framework, right? So it's not just information that I shared for you guys. This is an invitation. This is an invitation to keep the conversation going, right? It's an invitation to see differently, to love differently, and to respond differently. So I'm asking you guys, let's stay connected. I want to stay connected with you guys. So I challenge you, don't leave this webinar saying, okay, that was good. That was informative. That was powerful. Leave ready to make a difference. Please leave ready to start having these conversations with your loved one, because one thing about it is the sentence doesn't end at the gate, right? But together we can make sure that healing begins. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you.
Sheila, child, I don't even have the words. This was so much more than I could have imagined, expected. I'm so wow, I'm so moved.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I'm so moved. I'm moved by the how impactful this is for families and for the returning citizens, and how needed it is, for people. And I'm not even mad that you went over
Oh,
because is we just no, it was just so good and so needed. And I'm looking at the comments. I'm looking at people emailing me. My colleagues are emailing me. This is awesome. This is amazing. And it is all those things. It is everything. And I can't tell you enough. I'm thinking, like, I know you guys had I know people had questions and wanted to ask questions. We didn't get a chance to get through questions. I don't know, maybe Sheila will come back and, do a Q&A with us. You guys tell me what you want. If you guys, if our audience wants her to come back and do a Q&A around this topic, just let me know and we will we will certainly do that. If Sheila is open to it. Okay. And look at somebody saying, can we come back after read the books? Look at the chat is like, Phil, it's blowing up. Sheila, this is amazing. I don't have enough words to thank you for doing this for Be Strong Families. I see you with your hand up, and Lori, while we're doing this, can you put up the closing slides? Go ahead, Sheila. What did you want to say?
I'm sorry, I apologize for going over. I was really over here trying to watch it. But anyway, if anybody has any questions, you have my information. Email me and I will email you the answer. I don't want anyone to leave here and not have their questions answered. So please, my email address is Sheila, Shelia, at wifeafterprison.org. Please, and in the subject line, if you would put Be Strong Families, and I assure you that I will answer your questions.
Thank you, Sheila. And thank you to you guys for showing up year after year. Our next events are the Taste of Cafes that are on the screen. If you scan the QR code, you can sign up for one of those. You can sign up for an activity. Sheila has been a loss of words. Sign up for the activity with the QR code. Next slide. Also, Laura, you can go to the next slide. Also, you know, oh my goodness. Okay, Black Friday is coming up. Shop with Be Strong Families. Shop, shop, shop. Get all of your parent cafe needs. Do it early. Get ahead of the rush. Okay. Thank you. Scan the QR code. Next. As you guys know, this is not, we don't have necessarily a budget for webinars. We just love to share good info with you. So if you are appreciating these fantastic presenters and the information that you're getting from Be Strong Families, please consider donating to us so we can keep great content like this coming. And also, if you are interested in more of this, and if you have some lived experience and you are interested in part, we're looking, or you do reentry work, we're looking for partners for a reentry deck. So if you're interested, contact me. Sarita at BeStrongFamilies.net. You know, we create conversation decks and we're looking for partners for that deck. So if you're interested and you work with families or you have lived experience and you have, funds to help, let us know. All right. It is, again, Sheila, it's always a joy. Just thank you. Shout out to Dana and Lori for the great for tech and for setting us up and streaming. Share it on YouTube, guys. Go to YouTube and share this fantastic presentation. Okay, let's let the world know about PICS. Let's let the world, let's get it out there so that other families can forego some of the challenges that Sheila and others have had to go through. Again, thank you guys for a great webinar, and I will see you in January is when we'll return for the next webinar, okay? See you then. Thank you, Sheila. I'll be in touch.
All right, thank you.